There has been some new bombshell testimony and evidence in the Alec Murdaugh trial that is blowing his timeline out of the water. Hello everybody and welcome back to the sofa. That's the sofa back there, and our trusty sidekick Mr. Roscoe P. Coltrane is sleeping in his little bed under the sofa right now. He will join us later for another video. And my name is Paul. Welcome back. We kept the cushions warm for you. Y'all, today we're just doing a very quick little, interrupting your daily program kind of stuff for some quick updates. Now, if you've been following or if you have not been following the Alec Murdaugh trial, then you know that we're going to talk about today is like, oh my gosh. Now, if you haven't been following it, this is going to be some key information you're going to want to hear because this is like the pivotal type stuff. And we're going to talk about 3 different things in this video. We're going to talk about a couple of Snapchats because Mr. Alec learned the hard way how Snapchats work, and they didn't work in his favor. We're also going to talk about the whole did he say I or they situation, and then we're going to talk about a couple of other quick little tidbits, and we'll be referencing some articles, some video clips, and that kind of stuff. So what we're going to start off with first is we're going to look at some clips of a family friend. He is on the stand testifying. It's heartbreaking to hear him testify because essentially he was the last person to talk with Paul, and I guess inadvertently maybe Maggie, or hear them on the phone and that kind of thing. And so that's the thing. He was on the phone and heard who he thought was Alec on the phone, and then was later called in to look at the Snapchat to hear that and confirm yes that was. Now also, if you haven't been following closely, remember Alex's whole story is he was not at the kennels. So he was off doing this, he took a nap. His story has kind of fluctuated, right? It's been a little bit of a fluid story. So this evidence here coming out and someone on the stand saying, I'm 100 or 99% and then positive that that's his voice, it ain't good. So let's look at a few clips of that now.
Where was Paul when he called you?
He was at the dog kennels.
And how do you know that?
I could hear the dogs barking in the original call.
Is he describing to you what he's seeing on Cash's tail?
That's correct.
And Cash was at the kennels?
He was.
Did you hear any other voices when you were on the phone with Paul about 8:40?
I did.
And what voices did you hear?
I heard Miss Maggie.
And who else did you hear?
And I thought it was Mr. Alec that I heard.
You thought it was Mr. Alec?
Now, it is heartbreaking to hear him say Miss Maggie, hearing his friend Paul. He had his dog at the kennels, and Paul was, trying to show him something's wrong with his dog's tail. So that's how this all started. And again, this is evidence that, they talked about in the opening statements. And for me, I've been like, let's hear what they have to say. Like, let's see the evidence. I'll talk about my opinions of it, but I just wanted to kind of, build the foundation. Let's keep going.
After you never got the video, did you try to reach back out to Paul to see if you could get him to respond?
I did. I called him a few times and texted him.
Did he ever respond?
He did.
Did you reach out to anyone else trying to get Paul to respond?
I texted Miss Maggie.
Did she respond?
She did.
Bless his heart up there keeping it together. Of course, now we know sadly why they didn't respond and would never respond again.
You were ultimately interviewed by law enforcement and other part of the process and that sort of thing. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And as time went on and you were asked about who you heard on the phone that night, that call at 8:40, you said, hey, I thought it was Alec, but I can't be sure.
That's correct.
Told law enforcement the night of, 99% sure, correct?
Say that question again, please.
Told law enforcement the next day, June 8th, that you were 99% sure. Is that correct?
That's correct.
As time went on, you said, I thought it was Alec, but I can't be sure.
That's correct.
In November of 2022, did law enforcement ask you to come in and look at a video?
They did.
And did you watch that video?
I did.
And what was on that video?
It was the video. Paul was supposed to take a Cash. Cash was on the video.
And did you recognize the voices on there?
I did.
Did you recognize the voices of your second family?
I did.
And what voices did you hear?
Paul's, Miss Maggie, Mr. Alec.
And how sure are you now?
Positive.
100%?
That's correct.
Extremely powerful testimony, and the use of your second family. I mean, this is someone who, grew up with, knew, he would know if that is Alex's voice, right? So very, very powerful. And then walking him through, yep, a positive. That's what I heard. So now let's listen here at the Sofa Squad to the Snapchat. We can see it too, obviously. And we're going to talk about a couple of points. So we'll listen to the whole thing in full. I'll let it play a couple of times. Then we'll talk and we'll reconvene. Okay, we'll reconvene.
Get back. Get back. Quick, Cash. Come. Quick. It's okay. Come here. It's not bad. Come here, Cash. Shit. Come here. Close to it. Cash.
Hey, he's got a bird in his mouth.
Hey, Bubba.
It's a guinea.
There's a chicken. Come here, Cash. Cash. Quick.
Now, a few things about this, and again, in a minute, we're going to replay some of those key parts where I've isolated the alleged Alex's voice. First of all, moments later, this atrocity occurs to Paul and his mother. So you hear in the background the mother, Bubba, the family dog. He's got a bird in his mouth. Then you hear the male voice, Bubba, and then calling him, Bubba, Bubba, come here. I mean, I don't know about y'all, but to me, I mean, I didn't even know the man, and I'm like, that's Alec, right? That's a very distinct voice. You can hear him. And so again, okay, according to him, he wasn't there. He was, off to see his mother, taking a nap, doing anything but at the kennel with his son and Maggie. Now, also what this does now is it, for me, gives a clearer picture of, I mean, not 100%, but I can replay it in my mind now what I think happened. And it gives me chills because to me what it sounds like here is the family, those three have gone to check on the dogs, which sounds like it could be somewhat of an ordinary thing if they're all there. Now we also know through evidence that there was something about them, being drawn back to the property, Maggie having to go back to the property. And so now we can kind of put two and two together to realize why Alec wanted her out there, right? So they're out there checking on the dogs. They don't seem to be afraid. They sound very jovial. Paul saying, that's a chicken. It's not a guinea. It sounds like Alec is watering down, or it could be Maggie, I'm not sure who, but a water hose is being used, which I do think is very interesting, given the fact that Alec had, these change of clothes, which we'll look at a Snapchat here in a little bit. That also makes it more interesting to be like, well, where did you find time to change clothes from this outfit that you were wearing just a little bit ago? But, so somewhere out of the blue during all this, someone, allegedly, possibly Alec, grabbed a couple of guns and blew his family away, starting with his son. Now let's listen to a couple of the isolated spots where you can hear the male voice and we'll reconvene. So you heard him in the background, that Bubba, something going on there. Let's listen to the next one.
Hey, he's got a bird in his mouth.
Now you hear that Bubba, like he's frustrated. Bubba, come on. I mean, that's Alex.
Come here, Cash. Cash.
I mean, it speaks for itself. This is major bombshell to me. Number one, at minimum, it shows he has been dishonest. Now, of course, is he on the video? No. So we as the audience, I mean, this is like, I don't know if this would technically be circumstantial, but I mean, unless you got voice analysts and people like that coming in, all that kind of stuff, I don't know. But to me, it is him. It contradicts his timeline. Let's look at a couple of other things. Now we're just going to look at this article very quick. It's just a little snippet, but it was more bombshell type stuff to me at least. Calls to Alec Murdaugh's wife deleted off his phone on the night of the incident. Now let's look very quickly. So several of the June phone calls he placed to his wife the night she was shot outside their South Carolina home were deleted off the former lawyer's cell phone call history. Now they still were able to find these on Maggie Murdaugh's call history. Now of course this makes it look like they were purposely deleted, and also another thing that was brought up was that several text messages sent to Alex's phone were also unread until the next day. So this makes it very bizarre that some of these text messages that weren't read were in relation to like his father and that kind of a thing, where all this drama is allegedly going on with the dad. And so, why isn't he reading that? Why is this gone? All this trail that he left with text messages and phone calls, all at the same time that all of this is going on. Now, also, there's the whole thing with the steps on the phone and the testimony that's come out about, the phone being turned this way and that way. And I mean, it's complicated because there's so much going on in a little amount of time. But again, when you start to unravel it and then look at this, accompanied with the fact that things are not adding up. Now, there is proof that things aren't adding up. You said you weren't at the kennels, but now you're at the kennels. So now let's revisit this testimony about, well, then hold on a minute. We had questions about, well, how'd they get here and do this? Well, I don't know, and that kind of a thing. But then there's all these steps on the phone. Now, granted, that could, not easily be dismantled, but that can be a little bit shaky right there, right? But regardless, none of it starts to add up, and then you have to bring into question all this other stuff. I mean, we already know there's a whole bunch of financial crimes going on, so lying and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, this just seems par for the course. Now, let's look at one last little clip of another Snapchat. Snapchat is not Alex's friend, and then we'll talk about that.
Better than it was, ain't it? Better than it was, ain't it?
Now, the reason I put this up is the outfit. This is the video, the Snapchat of him and Paul riding around. They're looking at trees. They're doing all this kind of stuff. And then by the time he makes it into the police car, right after the event happens and they show up, he's wearing shorts and a t-shirt. Now, of course, he could have gotten home, changed clothes, done that. There's all that. But again, when you start looking at all these little details and adding them up as a whole, it just isn't looking good. Now, let's look at some clips with the infamous I did him bad or they did him bad. Now, y'all, I sit in the middle of the fence, and it's whatever I'm thinking of at the time is what I end up hearing. But let's listen to it, and we're going to listen to them, how they play it, slow down, all that kind of stuff, and we'll talk about it.
All right, let's play it. Please, Doug. Exhibit 243 and up.
It's tough.
It's just so bad. They did it so bad.
All right. Back it up and play it in real time again, Doug. Real time.
Or not easy. I know it's hard. And sitting here talking today is tough.
It's just so bad. They did it so bad.
Stop.
So again, he's talking to this investigator. We'll hear what the investigator says in a second, but it's the, did he say I did it so bad, or I did him so bad, they did him so bad? So like this particular time I'm listening to it, I continually hear they. Yesterday when I was listening to it at this speed, it was I. So it goes back and forth. I do not think that this right here is going to make a huge difference to the jury, because I think there's other evidence that ends up overriding this, and literally this becomes so muddied that it's like you just can't tell, so it becomes a moot point.
Did you hear now, they or I?
I will still testify that my hearing, I hear I.
So here you hear him saying that. Now also you have this, the dialect that they use in this area, which that can contribute to that as well. Also, he is allegedly crying during this, right? Now let's listen to this slowed down, but also be warned, I'm turning the volume up on this. So if you're listening with headphones or whatever, number one, it's going to sound very space alien kind of thing. But number two, the volume is going to go up a little bit. So just brace yourselves. Just brace yourself. Tell the household, hey y'all, calm down in there. Hey, you in the kitchen, get ready for some weird stuff.
And sitting here talking today is tough.
It's just so bad. They did it so bad.
Again, today, right now, I hear they. You know, we did a live chat last night. I went back and forth. I heard I and they and the same thing. So, and everyone had a different thing. Some people are like, half of it one way or the other. So again, I think a general consensus is this evidence right here on that is not going to be that big, because it's just, you can't. It's like the blue and gold dress thing that went around, the Yanni Laurel thing that went around. It's just, you can't really tell. Oftentimes, if you sit here and think of they and then listen to it, you're they or I or whatever. So all that being said, things are not looking good for Alec. Now, beforehand, so again, well, let me start over. I have been like, from the get-go when this started hitting the headlines, I was like, he's totally guilty. He did this. But of course, I don't want to think that he did this. And then when the trial started, I was kind of like, I could kind of see a hung jury, an acquitted jury on some of this. Because, I was like, I'm not... some of the stuff just isn't adding up, even though I still felt like he did it. With this evidence coming out, I'm like, ugh. Now granted, the whole thing is, are they going to be able to continue to poke reasonable doubt out there? Because so far they haven't, even though it's like, it's so, to me, obvious that he most likely did this at this point, right? I mean, it's just, it's not looking good. This stuff here, blowing his timeline out of the water, it's not a cute look for him, and there's still tons more evidence to come out. But now I'm leaning more towards, they're going to get a conviction out of this. But again, you never know. So if a hung jury were to come out of it, I would not be shocked. I would be surprised at this point if it was not guilty. I would be surprised over a not guilty verdict. I'm curious to hear what you think. What do you think? Not guilty, guilty, hung jury? Let me know in the comment section. We're going to keep you up to date. Remember to subscribe to the other channel, because over there we've been going live often recently and talking about this in the evening time some. And when it's something like bombshelly like this, I'll do a video for this channel and put it out. And then other than that, we're going to be following other cases over here too. We got some more Daryl Brooks on the way, so just be ready for all that. Thank you for hanging out with us. I do appreciate it, and until we meet back at the old Sofa Squad, well, I'll see y'all soon.